I'm not a big fan of this. We're gonna use it where we need to, but I want other European allies to share in the burden. And oh, by the way, Ukraine, Ernst & Young said, was one of the 3 most corrupt countries on the planet. You got a new guy who was a television personality who wins election in an overwhelming majority running on corruption, and the president simply said, let's check him out. Let's see if he's the real deal. Let's see if he's genuine. And he, after 55 days, he became convinced that Zelensky, I think he is the real deal. I think he's a genuine reformer, and the aid was released.
Well, doesn't the president have it within his Article 1 powers to make these calls? I hope we hear that from the defense team, Mr. Defense Team member. That argument hasn't really been made, that he has the right to, if he wanted to hold up the aid, I don't care what the GAO said. That's a legislative body, and that has no force of law. But he's the chief executive officer of the United States. If he thinks something stinks to high heaven in Ukraine with this whole Biden thing, or corruption in general, he has every right to say, whoa, wait a second before we release this.
Of course, he's the president of the United States, elected by 63 million people for this whole obstruction of Congress.
Oh, my God.
One of my colleagues says obstruction of Congress is what the founders called separation of powers.
Yeah, it's called checks and balances.
Exactly right. Exactly.
By the way, Hakeem Jeffries raised another issue that had been rejected by you all in the House. Watch.
Read the transcript, President Trump says. We have read the transcript, and it is damning evidence of a corrupt quid pro quo. The evidence against Donald Trump is hiding in plain sight.
Oh, that's very dramatic.
Yeah.
That's a real LA law moment there.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is ridiculous, because there was never any linkage of announcing an investigation, promising an investigation, or doing an investigation to get release of the money. So I remember asking Ambassador Sondland, I said, when did it happen? When was the announcement? And his response was, it never did. And that's the point. It never did. And yet they got the money on September 25th. They got the money on September 11th. They got the meeting on September 25th, and they got the call from the president.
Well, Adam Schiff said that was because he was caught. That's the only reason the money was released.
Not true. August 31st, Senator Johnson is on a phone call with President Trump, and the president tells him, you're going to like my decision, Ron. You're going to like where this thing ends up. Because he was becoming convinced that Zelensky and the new parliament that was elected, 70% Zelensky's party, they took over the parliament, that they were actually implementing the reforms they needed to implement.
Well, more importantly, they would have put the quid pro quo in one of the articles of impeachment. It would have been under a bribery, right? I mean, that would have been
They were saying quid pro quo on September 24th when Nancy Pelosi announced that they were going to do this before the call. Once the call came out, they backed away from it until today when Hakeem...
No, I'm just saying, they're resurrecting all the ghosts of the House impeachment process. Congressman, thanks for coming.